Hi, Will. I thought I would start with Montserrat since Maria's got a few more abnormalities that we caught on imaging. As far as her amputations, when you're looking here, this is what kind of looks like the Liz Franck amputation to me right here. Where you would naturally see an amputation in a patient with diabetes or some type of injury that took the toes. And as you scroll through these joints, just on the axials, one thing I noticed is that the articular surfaces are out in front here. And as you scroll through, you start to see the ends of the metatarsals, and they do not really align well with any of the articular surfaces. Let's add a plane. Let's do, and both feet seem to be altered in a similar way, although they are different. To achieve that tridactyl appearance, they're going to have to amputate and cut on the feet in such a way to position those metatarsals to look like an organic three-fingered or three-toed extremity. But I did not see evidence of this being what I would consider naturally occurring on any of these images. So let's see here. Here's feet. Here's what we were looking at. Let's zoom in here. We'll start over here at the side. So if you watch the top box, that orange line coming in is showing you through the sagittal plane in the foot where exactly I am. So coming into that first metatarsal, there's quite a large space between that metatarsal and the, I believe that's the cuboid or cuneiform it's trying to articulate with. And there seems to be some type of tissue between it. Maybe some type of, I'm not sure what that material is. And this is a great image as you come into the foot where you can see the transection of tissues. So we're looking at this area, okay? And as we come through the foot, move my purple line out of the way here. Hello. There seems to be a pretty clear cut directly across those soft tissues. And as we roll through, how lovely and flat this area is right here. Normal soft tissues of the foot should taper and have an insertion point farther down the foot, and that's what drives the mechanics of the foot, is that plantar fascia. So as we scroll through, you should be seeing marbleization of the tissues and the sole like you do here. There's the other side of the transection right here. So looking through, let's get over here to the other foot and come back this way. So looking at this other foot, And I believe that what would be our left in that top box, excuse me, would be her right. Usually look at everything in a mirror or a reverse in CT. So let's make this a single pane here. So again, one of the things that jumped out at me and made me think modified was that there's quite a discrepancy in the cortical tissue thickness of these bones, of the bones of the natural foot, and then the bones of what it may have been this person's actual foot, but they appear to have been moved around. That's where I brought up the raise resection. They can cut the toes, leave the tendons and, you know, stuff intact in a bundle, and then just move those around as needed to salvage functionality of the limb. To me, this is not a natural articulation right here. I'm not really sure how that foot would even function. And on this image, if you look at this right here, this white line in the middle, that is the plantar fascia, and that arises in the hind foot and extends all the way down to the toes. And think of it like the pulley strings of what allows your foot to bend when you take a step. And that, to me, to my eye, I cannot see where that actually meets. So if you follow it here, it seems to end right at that metatarsal, and that's why I think they might have employed raise resection type techniques. It essentially would hold those metacarpals in place without having to adhere them to anything. So let's go back. We'll take a look at Maria. So Maria, I'll start with her sutures. Let's go ahead and do our MPR. And this is part of the reason why the 3D rendering on its own is not a useful diagnostic tool. It's great to help bring a different aspect of the imaging you're looking at to another level. And for that, it is really good. So what we'll do here is we're going to window this so we can see bony detail a little better. Just got to get myself oriented here. So there's a suture. You're seeing part of it. And get it to stay right here. But that wasn't the most impressive. So same thing, we'll window for a bony detail here. And you're already starting to see that sagittal suture down the center line. There also appears to be sutures here and here. And then you're seeing one right here in the middle. So that's pretty typical for a human being and what we would see on a normal CAT scan. So as you scroll through, if you focus at the top of the head, you're starting to see the zigzag of the suture come in. Very classic zigzag shape right here. Kind of reminds me of a lightning bolt. And then as you scroll through these images, you can see right here where that sagittal suture meets the lambdoid suture, which is what you're seeing here. Kind of this squiggly looking line. It's not as defined as the sagittal suture with that lovely zigzag appearance, but if you look at presentation of a skull, that's very, very typical of a human skull. There's the suture, sagittal suture right there on Maria. And you can kind of see suggestion of it. I know, and this is why another reason why the 3D rendering, especially if they're using surface rendering, it's only taking data for the very, very surface of the volume set that you drew. And hence why I said, you know, having these images are invaluable, because we usually apply all those together and we don't really read 3D renderings by themselves. We always include these bony windows and soft tissue windows so that we can get a look at all of the anatomy in the body. Let's go back to, let's see, do I need to have, I do. So we'll do NPR one more time. And we'll take a look at her feet. The transection of tissues in Maria was more pronounced than it was in Montserrat, and jumped out at me immediately aside from those sutures. So here's the feet of Montserrat. Now, her articulations are even worse. Like I said in my analysis, one of them almost looks like it arises out of the bottom of the foot. It's not even articulated with an articular surface. So we'll start over here on this foot. So on this foot, as you scroll in, this first metatarsal you start running into doesn't seem to be articulated with anything right here. It almost arises more from the sole of the foot than in a position that would allow some type of natural gait. So in this coronal view, when you're looking at this, here we are, if you follow that orange line, you can see the metatarsal here. Try to get more on it, this right here. And it is not even sitting against, the end is not even sitting against an articular surface. It seems to arise from the sole of the foot. That was one big giveaway for me. Let's go back to one. So that being that first foot, we're moving through the body. And same thing with the plantar fascia here. It seems to run down to that amputation and then end. And you're seeing transection of tissues here. It just kind of abruptly ends. Muscle tissues can't function like that. They kind of have to have insertion points, a point where they arise and a point where they insert in the body, or they can't function. The alignment on the other two metatarsals is a little closer, but that first one is not even articulated with anything. So we'll move into the next foot because I felt like the transection of these tissues was really pronounced. So you see it here. I referenced these images in a thread the other day. And same thing, you're seeing that plantar fascia on this side. This white line right here. And when you follow that to its conclusion, so let's see, we start seeing it right here, arising off the foot. And then I want you to follow it down with your eye. So as we scroll through that, it just ends. Part of it seems to point down towards the sole of the foot, which again would make the foot non-functional. And we're starting to see dissection of tissues right here. So as we move, oh, it's too dark. So as we move through, even sharper transection there, you can see. But both feet appear to have those dissection of tissues, super poor alignment of the metatarsals, amputation of the plantar fascia. Yep. So those are the things that I saw that definitely pointed to me that this was not a real or unaltered tridactyl being. Let me know how much of that you want me to use, and hopefully, I know it's 17 minutes long, but I figured you could pick and choose what you want out of that. So talk to you soon, Will.